So good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
How are you?
That's great. Just see if my there we go. My video on now. There, hi. So good morning. I'm Bob Bierke, the Director of City Planning and Design with the City of Brampton. I'd just like to welcome everyone to our first first public-wide meeting for the Brampton Plan. Thank you for joining us this warm, delightful Saturday morning, and we really appreciate the time that you're taking out of your day to come and join us on this Saturday. We think this is a really important step forward for the city of Brampton, and we really want to share some of the things we've been working on as far as the official plan and the Brampton plan. And we're going to be talking today about all those elements of the city that are so important um, for how we live, work, learn, play. And we really want to get as many people involved in this process as possible. So through today, we're going to be talking over the next little while over, we've got 2 hours aside for this. We're going to be giving some presentations. We'll have some welcomes and introductions. There will be opportunities to provide questions that we'll be responding to at the end of the presentation. But before we get into that, I'm going to start with with a land acknowledgement, as we do for all the city's main events. And so with that, I'll say that we would like to acknowledge that we are gathered here today on treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and before them, the treaty territory of the Hanishinaabe, the Huron, and the Wendat. We also acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and other global Indigenous people that now call Brampton their home. We are honored to live, work, and enjoy this land. So with that, I'd like to ask Mayor Brown to provide some introductions. We've got a fantastic team here who will be who's been backing this project up. We have many members of council in attendance, and certainly welcome all the members of the public and the other attendees from across the departments and across the organization as a whole. So with that, Mayor Brown.
So much, Bob, and welcome to this webcast today. And thank you to all the members of City Council who are on the call, who have been big supporters of this public engagement. This is your city, and we want to make sure your voice is heard. It's why we're using every means possible, using technology to make sure that as we walk on this journey together for our city, your viewpoints are incorporated, that you know everything we know at City Hall, step by step. Since Brampton last adopted an official plan in 2006, a lot has changed. Just think of Brampton in 2006 compared to today. Our population has grown an astounding 61%. We've added 125,000 new jobs, and less than 4% of the people are working from home. Well, the global pandemic changed that, where a lot of people are now working from home, but the nature of the work environment certainly has changed in Brampton. The Brampton plan will chart a new direction. The Brampton plan will help align projects, manage growth, and follow the principles of the Brampton 2040 vision. That's a vision of world-class transit, key social infrastructure, and vibrant urban hubs connected to nature and quiet spaces. It's about promoting active lifestyle, climate mitigation, and sustainability as we build the city. Because it's easy to say that we have goals and aspirations for the city, but if we don't have benchmarks, we don't evaluate how we're going to get there, then we're not going to be consistent or ever obtain our aspirations for the city. It's why the city council has been aggressive in pushing the yardstick forward. I know on active transportation, we've said no new road will be built unless it passes a test of how we can incorporate walking trails, running, cycling, active transportation. It's why when we build our new bus transit system, we're looking at electrified transit, because we know we want to pass on the same beautiful environment of clean air, clean water, and a clean land to the next generation of Bramptonians. So tonight is about, this morning is about sharing our vision with you. And I want to make sure that our planning staff keep you abreast of the latest steps the city is taking, and you've got the most senior members of Brampton's planning staff on the call today, and they're available to you. So talk to us candidly and personally about what's special in Brampton for you. Tell us about what you envision. We are charting a new course to build an even better city. And let me say, I'm confident we are on the right track. Just recently, a Maclean's survey came out of the 450 or so odd Canadian municipalities, and Brampton has jumped up the list from number 200 to number 13, and an astronomical rise in terms of livability. And we're going to do everything we can to continue that rise, to make Brampton the best place to live in Canada. So I hope you enjoy the interactive session today. You got a great MC in Bob, and enjoy the conversation today. I'm actually doing this webcast from beautiful Gage Park in downtown Brampton with my little guy Theodore, my wife Genevieve, and after this webcast, I'd say to everyone, boy, it's a beautiful day to be in Brampton.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor Brown. We so appreciate your support and your leadership around the city building initiatives, and totally agree with you about Gage Park. What a wonderful gem! What a fantastic place to be able to do this this work and to join us from. So thank you as well for your support. I'll turn it over to Martin Medeiros, our regional councillor and the chair of the Planning and Development Committee, and ask him now, invite him to give us some opening remarks as well.
Thank you very much, Bob. First of all, I do want to recognize, as was suggested, that we do have Vice Chair Councillor Pat Fortini on the call or on the session. Unfortunately, due to recent dental operation, he won't be able to speak, but certainly he's been a force and working very closely with planning staff to ensure that the process that we deliver what we have today. So really wish him the best, and many of what I will be saying today is coming from both of us. Just really to start off, being born and raised in Brampton, and I've had the opportunity to live abroad after university and so on, and it's been interesting to sort of see where we were before, and Mayor Brown talked about in 2006, and Brampton always had the features of having great amenities. Someone who was involved in sports, we had just a plenitude of top-notch amenities, be it from our ice rinks, be it from our parks, our soccer fields, baseball diamonds, etc. And it was interesting being abroad and having spent some time in Europe. What really sort of attracted me was, and the feature was the walkability, was the mesh between public transit and active transportation, and the ability that you could leave your apartment and go pick up your bread, pick up your groceries, and so on. And here we are today, and it's very much that concept. And so we're really promoting walkability within the city. We're really promoting density and really trying to urbanize. So it's really exciting to think where we were before. With it, it brings certainly challenges. These are new ways of thinking. No longer is Brampton the sleepy suburbs, and certainly just from our sheer numbers, from our population growth, we're really turning into a real city that potentially in 20 years that will become the 7th largest in Canada. Despite the pandemic, the city of Brampton continues to attract investment, and investor confidence remains high. For example, our planning applications received by Brampton in Q1 of 2021 are nearly double the intake compared to the first 3 months of 2020 and 2019. And 2019, if you consider, was a record year for development. So we're just really, kudos to staff for doing just a fantastic job processing, and we're attracting that investment. We're growing, and there's no signs of slowing down. I'm sure the audience will be interested to hear how the Brampton plan will build on that momentum and continue to develop exciting projects like our Innovation Corridor, Riverwalk, Heritage Heights, Uptown, and how we can attract even more talent to our city. We have a great team in Brampton, and we're working hard every day to plan smartly, efficiently, and thoughtfully, And certainly I do want to recognize my councillor colleagues who are on the call. You know, this council has been very sort of laser focused on really building that type of urban concept here in the city, improving the quality of life. So kudos to all my colleagues, and certainly to Brampton staff. And thank you for everyone for being here on such a gorgeous day on a Saturday morning. So I'll hand it over back to you, Bob, and look forward to some of the conversations. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Councillor. It's fantastic to also have your leadership and the rest of councils with these kinds of initiatives, the city building work, that so many things are coming together in Brampton. And it's great to see the path that we're able to chart forward. And we have some really exciting things that we're going to be sharing today that really set the stage for where we're going to be going from here. A couple of things I'll just note before we get into the meeting itself. We will be going through the bulk of it will be a presentation with Andrew McNeil, our manager of the official plan and growth management. We'll be walking through some of the key elements of the Brampton plan, the process, and be sharing with you primarily the city structure and that map. Throughout, there's going to be some live voting and some polling questions that you'll be able to participate in, and we ask you to do that. There'll be on the right side of the screen, there is a chat box. So if you could please, if you're able to turn that on, you'll be able to see the answers to those polling questions, be able to participate in that. And as well, that's the way that we're going to be providing feedback and be receiving questions through the session. So please feel free to type your questions into there, and we'll try and respond. One thing that I'll also note is the session is being recorded and will be posted online. So if people haven't been able to connect live, there will be an opportunity to have that as something people can tune into later and refer back to. The chat box will be open, so as you go through that, also just a note, please be respectful in your comments. We do want to provide as many responses as we can. We'll get to them as we go through. We also have translation services available if you do want to type in some of the many languages that are spoken in Brampton. So we have some translation services in Punjabi, Hindi, Gujarati, Tamil, Italian, Portuguese, and Spanish. So we will do our best to translate and respond during the events as well. You know, again, if you've got questions and we don't have opportunity to get to them and we don't have translation services right now, we'll follow up with you. And certainly, if you're having problems accessing the chat, you can call the Brampton Plan team to communicate ideas. And again, this is part of a very extensive discussion that we're having with the Brampton community. So there'll be lots of ways to get in touch. And more events like this that will be coming forward. So as well, once we get through the meeting, there will also be a survey, a Metricus survey that'll be up, and we'd encourage you to fill this out. So you can access the survey, and we'll have these links available as at the end of the presentation, and it's at under the official plan on the Brampton City website. So with that, we'll get into the really exciting things we want to share with you. I'm going to ask Andrew McNeil to lead us through the presentation for the rest of the session. And thank you. We're off and running. Andrew.
Thank you so much, Bob, and really appreciate people taking the time out of this beautiful day. We will ensure that we respect your time and get you out, but before 12, so that you can get out and enjoy the wonderful weather today. Objectives of today, we want to provide an information exchange, a two-way exchange. We're going to share some information with you. We're going to test some ideas, and we're looking for your feedback. So please feel free to use the chat box that Bob just described. We'll do our best to answer your questions today, or we can follow up with you after the session. We want to share some best practices that are informing our work, that build upon all the engagement that occurred as part of the 2040 vision development. We're going to remind you about some of the key things that were created and that the community participated in shaping that vision that has informed and will continue to inform our work. And the ultimate goal of today is to share a draft new urban structure. And we want to get your feedback on that. We have a number of polls. There are 5 in total that we'll be sharing with you today. We've put a time limit of 1 minute, and I know that sounds short, but actually when we get into the first couple of ones, they can go quite quickly. So we'll put a 1 minute time limit on them. Once we start the poll, they will pop up on your screen. You will have 1 minute to enter your answers, and then we will tabulate those answers and share them all with you live, just to get an idea of some initial feedback. So to get things rolling, we thought we would start with a bit of a fun poll, just so you can see how it works and get familiar with it. So it started, you should see a pop-up on your screen. We're looking for your favorite superhero. We had a hard time filtering this list, but please pick from Wonder Woman, Black Panther, or Aquaman. I'm sure we all have our favorites, and I know there are some younger folks on the call today, so very curious about who you favor here. And I should mention we did mix DC and Marvel characters, but I think you could excuse that as part of this poll. So we have just a couple more seconds left, about 15 seconds left. We'll tabulate the answer, and hopefully that was fairly easy for everybody. 1 minute, when we get a little bit further and there's some more reading involved, that's why we put the 1 minute time limit on. Okay, so the poll has now officially ended, and I believe there are 15 to 20 seconds required just to tabulate the answers. And so our wonderful IT support behind the scenes should have the answer up quite shortly. And I'm quite curious to see which superhero is popular in Brampton. There we go. Black Panther, but Wonder Woman is a close second. So hopefully that was a bit of a fun poll. In a more serious vein, one of the things we're interested in understanding is our audience today. The numbers keep growing. Every time I look at the number of participants, the list is growing. So we're interested in understanding who's on the call with us today. So that poll has now started. First, general, and you can select all that apply. You don't have to just pick one. If you're interested in the future of Brampton, if you want to know more about the official plan, if you have business interests in the city, and you just want to learn more about planning in general in Brampton. So you can click one or all of the above. That poll is about halfway through. It's important that we understand the audience that we have on the call with us, so we can judge how much some of these ideas are resonating with residents and business owners. And we do anticipate that we will have some of our neighbors from Mississauga, municipal neighbors, Mississauga, Region of Peel, and Caledon on the call with us as well. So interested in that breakdown. The poll is almost over. The poll has officially closed, and we should have the tabulations any second now, just before we launch into the presentation. Okay. All right. So 81% of you are interested in the future of Brampton, which is fantastic. Close second, 46% want to know more about the official plan process. That's what we're here to do today. And running up third, you want to learn more about planning in Brampton. So that's fantastic. You're absolutely in the right spot, and we will do our best to provide you with the information you're looking for. So to get the presentation rolling, I'm going to give a bit of background about what an official plan is. It really provides and clarifies city building objectives for a municipality. and it's the planning tool that really guides how development, how growth should occur over the next few decades. The province provides a planning horizon for us to 2051, and the official plan really guides growth within that planning horizon. The 2040 vision that was created a couple years ago and endorsed by our council, part of what we're trying to do now is create the planning framework that will realize that vision and guide it. An official plan should be forward-looking, so not necessarily trying to entrench the city we have today, but clarify where we're trying to go in the future. So there is a visionary element to it, and it is intended to provide a clear policy framework. We want to be very clear that following today's presentation, we're going to be referring to Brampton's official plan as Brampton Plan. So that is the new name that will be Brampton's official plan moving forward. We will be looking for Brampton Council and Regional Council to hopefully adopt the new Brampton Plan within early in 2022. And as I mentioned earlier, this is about implementing the direction that was established in the 2040 vision. Why is a new plan necessary? The mayor touched on this briefly. The current official plan in Brampton was actually created back in 2006. The world has changed significantly since 2006, COVID aside. Planning approaches have changed, best practices have changed, and we want to make sure that Brampton is set up for success and is incorporating the best, most progressive thinking to help guide the future of our community. So we're longer overdue for an update, and that will be part of what will guide our thinking moving forward. Additionally, not only responding to best practice thinking, we actually have to conform to regional and provincial policy direction that also has changed significantly since 2006. So we will be required to update our official plan to make sure that we're in line with direction that's coming from the province and the region. Documents like the provincial policy statement, the growth plan, etc. Brampton Plan works as part of a hierarchy of planning documents, starting at the provincial level with Planning Act, Growth Plan, etc. We operate within a two-tier structure, meaning there is Region of Peel as well as the City of Brampton. Region of Peel also has an official plan. They are currently working on updating theirs, and we are working closely with the region. We're also working closely with the City of Mississauga, Town of Caledon, so that we're all approaching this in a comprehensive manner. Brampton Plan will be the highest order planning document that guides growth within the City of Brampton. Underneath Brampton Plan are a number of documents such as zoning bylaws, urban design guidelines, etc. And then there are also a number of studies, master plans, visions, etc. that have helped inform all of these planning documents. So Brampton Plan really will be pulling together the direction of the 2040 vision, as well as all of the other planning directions that have been established over the last little while into a comprehensive and clear structure to help guide growth moving forward. Brampton 2040 vision was endorsed by council back in May of 2018. Many of you who are on the call were part of that process. It was an exciting process. It challenged the status quo, and it provided a clear direction of where we were hearing residents and businesses were looking to take Brampton in the short, medium, and long term. We are following that, the integrity of that. We want to maintain true. We want to be true to that direction. And there are a number of theme areas that were established as part of that vision that will help guide the thinking that we bring forward over the next little while. Just to share the process with you, we need to be thinking about the Brampton 2040 vision as part of the development of Brampton Plan. So we've done a lot of the reconnaissance, inspiration, and vision through the Brampton 2040 vision process. What we are now doing is creating the policy that will implement that vision. So we're not intending to go back and ask residents of Brampton starting from scratch, what you want to see, because we've already done that. We've heard you loud and clear. This is about creating a plan to make it real. We can respond to further engagement and build upon what we heard before, but it is a process that will build upon the 2040 vision. The 2040 vision described the city that we have heard that you want us to deliver. Over the last little while, we've been analyzing the city we have. We've also been analyzing that vision. Brampton Plan will be the roadmap for change that brings it to life. The Brampton Plan process is divided into 5 phases. It officially kickstarted back in January of 2020. The first phase was really taking stock of all the great work that's been done over the last few years, making sure that as we got into this process, we didn't want to find out that we were missing something, that there were gaps in our analysis that would prevent us from moving quickly. So we've done that. We've analyzed the vision. The second phase was really testing that vision, undertaking population and employment projections, working very collaboratively with the region to understand growth and how we need to be thinking about growth and incorporating that into our planning process. The third phase was really taking stock of policy, what we need to conform with at other levels of government. So we've done a lot of that background work. Now we're ready to start moving and creating the detailed plan. So right now we're in between phase 3, phase 4. You'll see 2021 time horizon there. What we're doing today, a new city structure, a draft city structure. We want to share that with you, get your thoughts on it. And then over the coming weeks and months, we will be slowly unveiling new policy direction, policy thoughts that we want to test with you. And that will all culminate in a new draft plan. We hope to have a draft prepared by the end of this year with the goal of bringing that forward fairly early in 2022. A second poll. We want to, again, understand a little bit more about who's on the call with us today. So a series of questions, if we can get that poll up and running. So the clock has started. Select all that apply. You don't have to just click on one. Are you a resident? First option. Second, are you a business owner? Are you a member of the development building industry? Fourth option, are you a representative of non-governmental, nonprofit organization? Do you work in Brampton? Are you a public sector employee in Brampton or one of our neighboring municipalities? Again, this will help us with the feedback that we received today, just to decipher who our audience is, so that we can judge some of the comments that are coming back at us. We're hoping that a lot of your interests are aligned, and that we all want to make sure that we're building a strong and prosperous Brampton. But it is good to be able to understand who our audience is. So again, that poll has now officially closed, and we're just waiting for the tabulation to understand who our key audience is today. I just saw a chat comment. It doesn't allow us to select all that apply. Apologies for that. I guess there was just an other category. So I do apologize if all of those apply. So the majority of our audience today is residents, which is fantastic. We also have a strong contingent from other municipalities who I'm sure many of you are working closely with us on the development of the plan. Fantastic, but we're glad to see that the majority of the audience today are actually residents of Brampton. I'm going to give a couple slides of background before we get into the details of the new urban structure. We've called this the cost of sprawl. And really, there are 4 legs to sustainability: environmental, social, economic, and cultural. And if you think of this as a stool, if one of the legs is shorter or longer than the other, you tend to have a bit of a wobbly stool. We want to make sure, as we're developing plans for Brampton's future, that we're looking at all of these pillars, all of the legs of the stool, so that we're incorporating the thinking into our planning. And you can think of these as lenses that will guide all of the things we do moving forward. I'm going to briefly touch on some, but not all of these pillars of sustainability. some of the challenges, and you heard a lot about this during the 2040 vision, so we're not going to do a deep dive into all of the challenges facing Brampton or perhaps other suburban areas, but just some of the key things we want to remind you about. And I want to be clear, this is not just Brampton centric. Virtually every city in the world is struggling through some of these issues. We want to make sure that we're going to come up with a plan and solutions that allow us to be a world leader. But some of the things we're focusing on, Brampton, a lot of growth was post-war. A lot of it was very auto-dependent. So that's going to be one of the issues that we're going to have to think about and develop some strategies of how we can guide growth in a more sustainable manner, recognizing that factor. In the post-war period, we tended to isolate a lot of our land uses and separate things. That makes it a little challenging and has contributed to things such as social isolation and has also fueled a bit of the auto dependence. Think about if you need to get a liter of milk, a lot of us have to jump in our car and spend a liter of gas to get a liter of milk. We want to be thinking about ways to overcome some of those challenges and build 20-minute complete communities moving forward. Brampton and other more suburban places around the world have struggled with increasing rates of heart disease and diabetes. And that's a direct result of the urban form that we have created and that we're all living within. Social equity, affordable housing, top of the list of some of the challenges that we're facing. Affordable housing, with the housing boom that is currently going on in the GTA that's impacting Brampton, it's challenging for a lot of folks to find an affordable place to live. So we want to be creating options that can help ease that burden. And in parallel with Brampton, as part of Brampton Plan, we are actually bringing forward an affordable housing strategy. So look for that coming forward to council fairly shortly. One of the issues that's also quite challenging as it pertains to low density development is the ability for it to change over time. We need to be thinking about cities not just in the short term, but in the long term and how they grow and evolve, because cities never stop. They are constantly evolving and changing. And the image that you see here can be quite difficult to change in the long term. Put up an image here. Many of you will recognize this and be familiar with it. The reason we've chosen to show Port Credit, we wanted to show an example of a community, a suburban context community that has undergone intensification and that has changed and evolved quite dramatically over a very short period of time. And Port Credit is one of the best examples, not only in Southern Ontario, but in Peel region, of an area that has undergone that type of transformation. And some of the key things that we wanted to point out to you, Port Credit, if you notice the image on the top, it was actually laid out much earlier in 1954, but that's the earliest aerial image that we have of Port Credit. The streets and block structure, right up to present day, have not changed much. So the structure that was created over 70 years ago maintains today. The land uses have changed dramatically. What once was a cottage community for the city of Toronto and actually had a very strong industrial base looks very different today. It has changed from low density cottages to townhouses, semis, mid-rise development, high-rise development, etc. And the interesting thing to note, as intensification has occurred, the quality of life has actually improved in the village of Port Credit. When we think about Brampton, think about the areas of Brampton that can accommodate this type of evolution and actually improve over time. The interesting thing about it is it's typically pre-war areas that have been laid out with a really good structure. Downtown Brampton is a pre-war area. Its intensification has been impacted by Riverwalk. So once that issue is resolved, the flooding issue is resolved, we do anticipate more growth and more evolution in our downtown. And there are issues that come along with that. Port Credit is struggling with how you maintain the village feel, village character. So those are issues that we'll have to deal with in downtown Brampton. But this is one of the things we want to be thinking about as we're laying out the plan for future growth. We want to make sure that we get the structure right so that Brampton can continue to grow and evolve over generations and not just a few years. Obesity, heart disease are significant issues. I touched on this in a previous slide. 62% of the residents of Peel are obese or overweight. 1 in 6 Peel residents suffers from diabetes. And one of the stats that breaks my heart is across Canada. So this is not just a Brampton issue. This is across the board. 7% of kids are not getting minimum requirements of daily activity. The environment that we create, the environment that we build and plan for has a direct impact on our health. COVID aside, these are things that we need to be thinking about as we plan the structure of Brampton moving forward. You'll notice on this slide, Brampton has declared a healthcare emergency. So this is, again, is not just about COVID. COVID has dramatically impacted the community of Brampton. But there are other issues that we need to be thinking about as well as we move forward with our planning. As well, some of the things, the thinking that will underline our approach in planning. We want to create value in Brampton. And when you think about a lot of what has been built in the community over the past few decades, we thought it would be interesting just to show you as a comparison some of the stats between single land uses, which I talked about earlier, have really dominated a lot of the post-war thinking, versus mixed use. Single land uses such as a Walmart, power centers, etc., they tend to occupy a lot more land than do more urban, mixed use, vertically integrated environments. On a per acre basis, they actually don't create nearly as much tax revenue as would a mixed-use development. They're actually not even close when you compare them. Retail taxes per acre, mixed use actually outperforms a lot of the power centers. And interesting for a lot of folks, residents per acre, obviously when you have single uses like power centers, there's nobody living in that as part of that. So you don't get residents per acre, whereas in mixed use, you do, obviously. And jobs per acre. Mixed use can actually outperform a lot of these power centers in terms of job creation. So when you look across the board, we think as a model for something that we want to be pursuing, mixed use is something that can help us add a lot of value to the community of Brampton moving forward. We're not intending to put it everywhere, but in some strategic spots, we think it's something that can really help Brampton. This is a graphic that illustrates one of the reasons why we think mixed use, urbanization, intensification is important. There's a line that runs across your screen. On the top of the line are revenues. On the bottom of the line are expenses. This is a graphic that can apply to virtually any city in North America. It can apply to Brampton. And what the trend has been over the last little while is when you have low density areas, which you see on the left part of the screen, the revenues that come into a municipality through things like taxation really don't cover all of the operating expenses that it costs to keep these areas of the city going. Urban areas tend to be in a little bit more of a balance. And what happens is more urban areas tend to subsidize suburban areas. So this is an important graphic for Brampton to be thinking about as we set about how we want to grow in the future. A few years back, the Sustainable Prosperity Institute back out east in Halifax undertook a study. This is a little dated, this study, but it's still one of the best analysis that's been undertaken in Canada. We will probably look at doing a similar analysis for Brampton, but for now, this is one of the best things that we have to go on. And what you'll notice, they've actually tried to look at the total costs of operating a suburban home versus a more urban home on a yearly annual basis. The cost of operating a suburban home, when you add all things like police, bringing water, sewer, fire, schools, etc., it's two to three times the cost of an urban approach. So again, when we're thinking about the long-term economic health of Brampton, this is an important thing to be considering for the future. A lot of this has to do with capitalizing and making best use of infrastructure that already exists. In the downtown, in uptown, there's already pipes, water, sewer in the ground. Let's leverage that and build on that and make the best use and create the most value of existing infrastructure. So again, an important concept as we move forward. I'll now move in with that basis, some of the best practices that we're thinking about. I want to jump into city structure and walk you through some of the thinking that we want to share with you. First of all, I want to explain what a city structure drawing is. It is high level. It is intended to identify key structural elements and relationships that will guide future growth in Brampton. So things like where growth should be directed and conversely where it should not. We don't want intensification to go everywhere in Brampton. A lot of you, your communities, you love your communities. We want to make sure that new growth as it comes in is respectful and it's directed where we want it to go. We want to identify key intensification nodes and corridors. And typically these are located around higher order transit. So we're not just building around cars, we're building to create walkable, vibrant, transit-oriented communities, which are much more sustainable in the long run for Brampton. We want to identify at a high level where residents and business owners will live and work, and as well where the significant green networks will be located and how they interact with the built environment in Brampton. So those are some of the things that you're going to hear us talking about today. The details that are informed by the structure will come. So we want to get the structure right first, and then we will layer on the details to that structure over the course of 2021. So I want to remind everyone that there is a current structure in the 2006 official plan. We want to build upon that structure, and a lot of the thinking that was created during the 2040 vision has hinted about where we think Brampton should be going. So there was actually a conceptual structure proposed as part of the 2040 vision process. We've been testing that. We've been looking at the elements of that, and we want to build upon that as we move forward. The key structural elements, as I just mentioned, centers, boulevards, corridors, neighborhoods, non-residential land uses, and green network are the structural elements that I'm going to walk you through over the next little slides that will come together at the end of the presentation in the new city structure. But I want to walk you through the layers and share some of the thinking that we've been going through to help create the draft structure. Starting with the green network, one of the most important networks. This is what nature gave us. Brampton has been blessed with some amazing green natural heritage systems, parks, trails, etc. Things like Credit River, Etobicoke Creek, Heart Lake. These are world-class amenities. We want to make sure whatever we do moving forward protects, preserves, and enhances what nature has given us. And we want to leverage those to really enhance the livability and quality of life for all of the residents and visitors to the city of Brampton. Some of our ideas about how we can build upon that green network. We want to make sure that what we are building, man-made influences, enhances and not detracts from what the natural system currently is. So things like how we design our streets. In Heritage Heights, if you've been following some of the development up there, we want to take a very green approach to streets, incorporating stormwater treatment, trees, beauty, things like we find in downtown Brampton today. Downtown Brampton is actually a very good model for how to grow in an environmentally respectful way that will actually complement the natural system. Downtown Brampton was laid out pre-war. So trees, beauty, environmental sustainability. Over by the court, the county court, There are actually some approaches to retain stormwater as part of our boulevards. So we want to incorporate low impact development as part of all of our street design. Our approach to parks, there's some wonderful planning going on right now in Northwest Brampton for a new potential eco park that can leverage the green belt and really provide an amazing amenity for the residents and visitors to the city of Brampton. So those are just some starter ideas, but very important, the green network layer and how we build upon that and leverage that moving forward. Neighborhoods, something near and dear to all of you on this call. The majority of the people on the call are residents of Brampton. We have a variety of neighborhoods. We've just put up a couple of them here on the slide, not by any means all of them. Bramalea, which was one of the most innovative communities back in the 60s. Many of our residents live in Bramalea. You have a wonderful quality of life. There are places to shop, places to recreate, some amazing parks, schools, etc. Peel Village, another very popular community in Brampton. Again, a variety of things that you can do to really enhance your livability. Mount Pleasant Village, one of the more newer communities in Brampton. And if you take a good look at each of these communities, as well as others, including downtown Brampton, the thinking that went into them is they're all a little bit different. Mount Pleasant Village is very much a new urbanist community. It's designed around walkability, tighter street networks, really leveraging transit. So they're all a little different, but the great thing about Brampton is when you look at Brampton and in comparison around the world, we're very fortunate to be enjoying a very high quality of life, but we want to build on that and we want to make it even better moving forward. Think about a pizza. And when you think about community buildings, community structure, and the ingredients that go into a pizza, whatever type you're building, pizza dough and all the toppings that would go into it, some of them taste better on their own. Personally, I love cherry tomatoes, but I would never pick up some pizza dough and eat it on its own. If you get things right and you get the ingredients mixed properly, you can create a wonderful tasting pizza. Think of the pizza like the city that we want to build and the neighborhoods as slices of that pizza. As an overarching theme, we want to be approaching neighborhoods in terms of a 20-minute neighborhood approach, where hopefully you can undertake all of your daily needs within a 20-minute walk. But it's really about how we mix all of those ingredients together. So each of these circles represents a 20-minute neighborhood. This is intended to be conceptual in nature, but each of the neighborhoods in Brampton, there are wonderful things, and some are better than others, quite frankly. Some are mixed a little bit better to give that great tasting pizza more than others. And we've just identified some of the things that we want to be thinking about to be able to create complete 20-minute neighborhoods where people can live and work. This is increasingly a critically important issue, particularly because of COVID and how that's impacting how people are working. Parks, schools, trails, civic anchors. Have you got what you need within a 20-minute walk? If not, let's think about how we can improve that. The image on the left about a neighborhood convenience store, that one is currently located just on the periphery of the downtown. Believe it or not, a lot of planning codes across the country actually don't allow that anymore in residential neighborhoods. We want to make sure that you don't have to spend a liter of gas to buy a liter of milk. So being able to go out, undertake your daily needs, your shopping, your recreation, your work tasks, etc., within a short walk is very important to the future planning in Brampton. I mentioned that each neighborhood is unique, and over the last while we have engaged in what we're calling the Nurturing Neighborhoods community. A number of members of council, actually I believe all members of council, have been very involved in this process. This is about going out and auditing the wonderful neighborhoods that we already have and working with the residents to determine what perhaps are we missing? How can we make it better? How can we create those complete 20-minute neighborhoods? It's not going to all happen overnight, but if we can figure out what we're trying to do and create the plan to get there, we can take the steps to make those changes over time. So very important to work with you all on that. A third poll, just want to break up my presentation, and I'm going to jump into some interesting stuff immediately after. But what characteristics do you believe contribute to a healthy and complete community? So here we're asking you to pick your top 3. First, active transportation options: walking, cycling, transit. Do you value getting out of a car and being a little more active in how you get around? Affordable housing and different options for different stages of life. Accessible, connected green networks, parks, trails, etc. Variety of employment areas and jobs throughout Brampton. Equitable access to community services and facilities, things like libraries, rec centers, parks. Ensuring a community has places to live, work, exercise, play, and buy local and healthy foods. So please pick your top 3, and I believe the poll has now closed. So very curious to see what people value as some of the top 3 components of city building, and what we should be thinking about as we create our policies moving forward to create a healthy and complete community for Brampton. And the numbers should be coming in any second. There we go. So top of the list, it's really about ensuring we have places to live, work, exercise, and play. Top of the list, active transportation, number 2. And this is a common theme that we're hearing across the board. The approach to transportation is critical in how we shape Brampton moving forward. And running up the list of the top 3, creating a connected and accessible network of green spaces. So very, very informative feedback. Thank you so much. That is very helpful. It tells us that we're on the right track with some of our thinking. I'll jump back into the presentation now. Non-residential, very important to the future of Brampton. This has a direct impact on all of our wallets within the city, because the amount of tax that we can create, the jobs that we can create in Brampton, eases the tax burden on all of the residential property owners. Brampton has done a wonderful job at building a strong economic base. The importance of what we have in Brampton has been paramount during the pandemic. Logistics, goods movement, we've been delivering a lot of what the residents in Southern Ontario have been relying upon over the past year and a half, as a lot of us have been shut down in our communities, and things like Amazon and having things shipped to our homes have been very important. What this drawing indicates, so the large gray areas are what we call employment lands. And we tend to protect these from having residential included within them, because we believe it is so paramount to try and achieve a balance between jobs, people living, and people working within a community. The more that we can create that balance, ideally, the less residents have to travel to go to work each day. Things like Chrysler, CN Intermodal, Amazon, Canon, these are large employers. The large gray blob is where a lot of the industrial manufacturing is tending to locate in Brampton. In the southwest is more of an upper, higher end office image that the city of Brampton is looking to grow. But there are other components. We've got a strong healthcare, and that's growing with recent provincial announcements. The one thing I did want to point out, when you look particularly closer to the northern sections of Brampton, some of them, the employment lands have had power centers. So auto malls, big box retail centers, etc., locate in some of those employment lands. I'm not going to say that's a terrible thing. We need to all buy things. We need to buy cars. We need to go shopping. As a parent of 2 youngsters myself, we need to buy 1,000 diapers. I quite value having a Walmart not too far from my home. But if you remember the creating value slide a couple slides ago, we also want to be thinking about how we can leverage these employment lands to create the highest and best use and the highest value moving forward. Some of the things we're thinking about, again, Brampton is well positioned. We have close access to Canada's most significant airport. We're very lucky to have that, and that has really driven a lot of the economic development in Brampton. We have rail connections. We have access to a very young labor pool, which is something that employers look for. So we have a lot of the ingredients, and Brampton is really well positioned for future economic growth. One of the things that we really want to think about moving forward is livability. And perhaps this is something that Brampton can do better at. So things like how walkable, how transit oriented we are, housing options, etc. These are things that employees are looking for. And what we are seeing right across North America is a growing trend of postgraduates, whether college or university. A number of them are actually choosing cities they want to live in before they have a job. COVID has impacted that a little bit, but that was a very strong trend prior to COVID, and we anticipate that trend to continue. The thing that is driving locational decision-making is livability. How cool you are. Do you have great places, bars, restaurants, etc.? How walkable you are. Do you have great streets? Can I ride my bike between where I live and where I work? So that's some of the things that we're going to be focusing on moving forward. And livability in terms of work from home has been a very interesting issue, particularly during COVID. If you've been paying attention to real estate prices and what's happening on the fringes of Toronto and well up into cottage country, technology, what we're using today to communicate, is allowing folks to live and work from home in remote areas. So how livable you are has a direct connection to attracting people to come and move to your community. So this is going to be a strong focus of Brampton Plan and the structure that we create. Some of the structural infrastructure elements, and we're well positioned, particularly from a transportation perspective. We're part of a regional economy, and we want to be thinking about how connected we are within the region. So the heavy rail connection, the GO corridor that links Union Station to Kitchener-Waterloo, that's a very important strategic piece of infrastructure for the city of Brampton. As well, investments that are well underway to build light rail from Port Credit right to downtown Brampton. These are things that are going to help transform Brampton and provide us the leverage that we need to grow into a world leader. And when we think about things like rapid transit, LRT, and GO, and if you've been following some of the dialogue that GO region, that GO Transit is engaged in, they're starting to rethink the whole GO network and how that network is being used. It's no longer about delivering employees from Brampton, Mississauga, Kitchener, Waterloo, etc., down to Union Station to work in the cores of downtown Toronto. It's really about a two-way, all-day system that can deliver employees to employers throughout the region. So we can leverage employees in Guelph, Kitchener, Toronto, Etobicoke to come and work in Brampton if we create the right ingredients for those dynamic areas where employers want to locate and employees want to be. This will allow us to connect to and access larger regional talent pools. So that is informing some of the thinking that we're exploring as part of our non-residential layer. So the purple on this map is what I showed you earlier. What's really out there today, where we've got a lot of large industrial, manufacturing, prestige, office uses, etc. But the layer that we want to add to this is the livability layer. And how you do that is by leveraging these transportation investments. So the innovation corridor, currently we have 3 GO stations: Bramalea, downtown, Mount Pleasant. We're exploring a 4th as part of growth in Northwest Brampton. The beauty of what we're doing in Northwest Brampton is essentially we can plan a community from scratch. We've learned over the decades how to create these types of environments with walkability, transit-oriented development, etc., as foundational to plans. So we get the opportunity to do it right in Heritage Heights. But we also want to leverage these other existing areas in the downtown and Bramalea and determine what we need to do to introduce the ingredients in those areas to really foster a more innovative approach to economic development, particularly around these transit stations. All of these circles represent potential mixed use areas. The slide earlier talked about mixed use and how that adds value. And we've heard loud and clear from the residents of Brampton, those are the types of places you'd like us to be exploring creating. The blue are transit, whether Zoom or regional, local bus transit that connects a lot of these corridors. And particularly along areas like Queen Street and Steeles, we want to rethink some of our approaches there so that we can introduce a bit more of that livability aspect and really fuel mixed use development along some of those corridors. We need to protect some of the larger employment areas for industrial manufacturing, but along some of these key corridors where we have rapid transit planned, that's where we want to introduce some diversity of options to really fuel innovation in sectors like knowledge, creative economy, tech, etc. And one last point I wanted to make on this slide, for those who have been following the GTA West 413 discussions, depending on the trajectory of what happens with that highway, Brampton's been very clear that we believe an urban boulevard is a more appropriate and sustainable vision. Should the highway alignment not proceed out into Halton region, we have an opportunity to actually run that and connect that potentially with Bramwest Parkway, which then we would be able to leverage higher order transit connection in Heritage Heights with higher order transit along a future urban boulevard to service all of these employers down in Southwest Brampton. So those are the kinds of things that we're thinking about leveraging with our plan. Fourth poll, this is a second last poll, but we want to hear from you. What are the types of jobs that you think we should be pursuing? We don't want to get into the whole economic development strategy because we have a group led by Claire Barnett and her team. That's what they're focused on. We're thinking more from a planning perspective here. So depending on the types of jobs we want to pursue, that impacts the way that we plan our community. So technology, logistics, warehousing, which has been very important to the economy of Brampton. Do you want that expanded, or should we be looking at some other options? Office, creative sector, health sector, post-secondary, green technology, etc. So interested in what you think we should be focusing on as we create a plan and a structure that can allow a diversity of options to materialize in Brampton over the coming years. The poll has now ended, and we just need a couple sections to get your thoughts. These will be the top 3 answers, and I'm very curious. And again, a lot of this will be driven by the audience we have on the call, and that's why it's important for us to understand who actually is on the call. Okay, so we have top answer, green technology, fantastic. And that is very in line with council has recently put forward a resolution declaring, sorry, my mind just went like the declaring a climate emergency. So that is very in line with thinking. We are absolutely pursuing green ways of growing. And I should mention as a sidebar, up at Heritage Heights, we're actually pursuing a green and energy plan as part of our secondary planning. To my knowledge, that's the first time that's ever been undertaken in the province. Second, technology. Third, if I'm reading the numbers correctly, healthcare. So this is very helpful, very informative to help guide some of the thinking. And we will absolutely be engaging with our economic development group at the city. So this is helpful input for them as we help chart our path forward. Nodes and corridors, and from one of the earlier polls, active transportation, very important to a lot of you. So this will be an interesting slide, I hope, for some of you. What's out there today Shoppers World, I think many of you understand the incredible change that we anticipate coming down the pipe in Shoppers World to transform that area of Brampton. Downtown, we're also positioning for some change. A lot of the corridors, such as Queen Street East, Steeles, here Ontario, we want to spend a fair bit of time thinking about how perhaps those corridors can evolve. Things like Bramalea GO Station, which is currently set up as a very auto-centric world. A monstrous parking garage was just built to facilitate cars and really a park and ride approach. How do we rethink some of that world and create a bit more of a mixed use environment to leverage all day, two day go as part of Bramalea? So some of the things that are top of mind, and I think this resonates with some of the survey results that we're seeing. Complete streets, this will absolutely be a critical component of Brampton Plan. And we're working very closely with our transportation planning group. They are currently leading a transportation master plan that will dovetail quite nicely and align with the approach that we take in Brampton Plan. But the key thing when we think about complete streets, it's not just about moving cars, trucks, buses. There are mobile users that include pedestrians, cyclists. There are more static uses, buildings, parks, retail, and how all of that relates to a street. So complete streets are designed to be safe for everyone, not just mobile users. And when you look at some of the images that we've prepared for Queen Street and that we're introducing for here Ontario Street up in Heritage Heights, you'll see this as a common trend. It's about the package deal. It's not just about curb to curb. It's about how buildings interact with streets. Are we creating safe environments for pedestrians and cyclists, not only to walk on sidewalks, but also to cross streets? So it's a package deal. We hear you loud and clear, and that will absolutely be part of the shift that we're proposing. Streets particularly the big, wide, fast-moving streets in Brampton, we're hearing loud and clear that you want to see some of those change. We're going to have to pick our spots in the short term and really focus on some key areas where we want to introduce change. But as an overall approach, we believe complete streets is absolutely paramount. Within the plan that we're sharing with you today, we've defined primary corridors and secondary corridors as key areas where we believe that change should be directed. There's a subtle difference between these two designations. Primary corridors are corridors like here Ontario Street that connect Port Credit to downtown Brampton, and Queen Street corridor. And these are the two areas where we see probably the highest intensity of intensification coming down in the not too distant future. It's also the priority for where we want to direct intensification. Secondary corridors, things like the Boulevard and Heritage Heights, as well as a few other corridors that I'll be sharing with you shortly. In terms of a hierarchy, they're still very important, but just a little bit less on the scale as to here Ontario and Queen Street. Things like BRT, Zoom, highly appropriate on a secondary corridor. Probably the scale of development a little bit lower, so medium to high density versus high density, and really secondary priority intensification areas, which can also include greenfield, such as Heritage Heights. So hopefully that subtle difference is clear to folks as we move forward. And one of the last points I want to make before I show you some of the new corridor and nodes that we want to share with you today. Goods movement. This is an important issue for Brampton. It's an important issue for Peel Region. The economy of Brampton is very directly related to goods movement. We have intermodal rail facilities. We have Pearson Airport, where a lot of goods movement comes through. So we understand that moving trucks is very important to the economy of Brampton. The challenge that we're going to face over the next little while is how we balance the objectives of goods movement with some of our urban objectives along corridors such as Queens and Steeles, etc. So we want to be thinking about how to do this so that we can still be responsive and respectful to the goods movement industry, but we also need to be responsible and respectful to the vision that the residents and business owners of Brampton are telling us they want to see. And sometimes these can be in conflict. So it's an interesting issue that we need to work through. One of the keys to resolving this is really leveraging some of the 400 series highways that already exist. Things like the 407. There are currently tolls on the 407 that some truckers feel is a little bit of an impediment to them using that facility. So perhaps we can work with the province to find a solution there. Steeles, Dairy Road in Mississauga are currently being used by the trucking industry as an alternative to the 407 because, quite frankly, they don't want to pay the toll. There may be other motivating reasons, but that's one of them. So let's see if we can resolve some of these issues to help us really work together to create our urban objectives. So in terms of where we think things should go, again, leveraging higher order transit, rail connections to create mixed use town centers, mixed use nodes, leveraging higher order transit on Hurontario and Queen Street, really focusing on intensification in these corridors around Uptown, Downtown, Bramalea, and how these corridors, primary and secondary corridors, connect those areas. But then areas like Queen, areas like Steeles, what the character of those roads look like, and how we create those complete walkable 20-minute neighborhoods along some of those corridors, and reconcile some of the conflicts with potentially goods movement there. So that's some of the thinking that we're pursuing with nodes and corridors. So I've walked you through at a high level. Again, there are a lot of details that will come later, such as our cycling network, et cetera. So those details will come that will build upon this structure. These are the key structural elements that we bring together into a draft structure. So what we're sharing with you right now on the slide is pulling those 5 layers together into a draft structure. Just to quickly highlight again, leveraging GO rail connections, higher order rail connections, creating opportunities for vibrant mixed-use centers, placemaking that can really drive a different type of economic development in line with some of the results that we saw of the types of jobs that you're looking for us to create. This box in the middle that you see connected by both primary and secondary corridors, that's a really important focus area for Brampton moving forward. That should be the priority intensification area for where we want to direct growth. But these satellite town centers, Bram East, Trinity Common, Mount Pleasant, Heritage Heights, Bram West, those are also areas that we want to be thinking about creating as vibrant mixed-use places. And you'll notice they are all connected by transit, so critical to the future of Brampton. A lot of people are concerned about congestion on our roads. The best way to manage and overcome that is with a forward-looking land use plan that really focuses on compact mixed-use development. The goal should be to try and minimize the need to travel. So 20-minute communities where you can undertake all of your needs, hopefully within 20 minutes. That's really the goal behind what's motivating a lot of this structure. And obviously regional connections. If you remember the structure that I showed you from 2006, it really cut off the world at the boundaries to Brampton. We need to be thinking broader, our regional place, how we leverage the GO line to connect employers with employees, how we facilitate connectivity with Pearson Airport. We're very lucky to have the largest gateway to Canada located in our backyard. That's something that not a lot of communities have, and that's really driving a lot of growth in Brampton. And then how we leverage these green connections to the waterfront, connecting to different campuses of Sheridan College, et cetera. So that's why you see these arrows going beyond the boundaries of Brampton, because we recognize it's about also making connections beyond Brampton. So I'm hoping that you like what you've heard so far. There's a few more slides I want to share with you after this poll. But this poll, which I hope we can get running momentarily, is really to understand, I'm not seeing it pop up yet. I'm hoping IT can get this one going. We're trying to understand how you feel. Do you like the direction where we're heading? Do you strongly agree with it? Do you somewhat agree? Are you kind of neutral? I neither agree nor disagree. Or do you disagree with the direction we're taking? I'm not seeing the poll come up just yet, but I hope we can get that.
Andrew, we're just having a technical issue. Just be a minute.
Okay, so maybe what I will do as that's being worked through, I'll proceed to talk about some of the growth numbers, and hopefully we can get that poll up shortly. Mentioned earlier, directing growth is one of the key components behind what we are doing with the structure. So everybody is aware there is significant growth planned for Peel Region. The province with the growth plan actually sets targets we must conform with. So the growth plan is indicated by 2051, and that's the horizon that we plan within. Just shy of 2.3 million people will live in Peel. That's a growth of 847,000 people. Within that growth, Brampton will receive a share. Region of Peel has indicated that Brampton by 2051 should grow to about just shy of a million people, 985,000. We've undertaken some independent projections, and we believe ballpark a million people. That could actually be low estimate by 2051. Is a reasonable population forecast for us to be planning for. So we are using that to help inform the plan that we are sharing with you. We also need to be thinking about the goalpost will continually move. So in a decade or so, it will likely go out to 2061. So cities are never stagnant. They continue to grow. They continue to evolve. So as we're planning new communities, you remember that slide about Port Credit that I shared with you? We want to be thinking about how intensification and future growth can be incorporated within the structure that we set up. From a jobs perspective, Peel Region has estimated about 355,000 jobs will come here over the next 30 years. Our independent projections would put that about right down the middle of what we're thinking is realistic. So I think we're quite well aligned in that perspective. So we would love to see more jobs to create a better balance between people living and working, but that is still quite healthy employment growth. So when you layer that on to the structure that we've created, again, I mentioned earlier, one of the purposes is being able to articulate where growth should go and where it should not go. Heritage Heights is more greenfield type development. Over the next 30 years, we do believe 80,000+ will likely materialize out in Heritage Heights. Mount Pleasant and some areas around Mount Pleasant will also we'll see some growth. The key strategic growth area are the areas in red, uptown, downtown, Bramalea. The numbers we're showing you on this screen conform to the population projections that the region has put forward. I want to be very clear. What we are doing, what we are planning for, can absorb more growth. So ultimate build out within uptown, within downtown, within Heritage Heights can actually be significantly higher. But we want to make sure that we're planning for it, we're anticipating it. And part of these numbers are about absorption rates and how much we realistically think we can see unfold in the next 30 years. And then last slide I want to share with you pertaining to the structure. We've been doing a lot of work over the last few years. Immediately after council endorsed the vision for Brampton, we got to work. We started rolling up our sleeves. Uptown is a focus for a lot of the work we've been doing, and that's creating that vision for an urban, walkable, transit-oriented place. So a lot of work going on in Uptown. Downtown, tremendous amount of work, really pulling together all of the initiatives. that have been undertaken over the last little while into a clear, coherent strategy moving forward. The city's been doing work on Queen Street between downtown Bramalea to create the structure for that type of place that we believe is appropriate. Work will begin shortly out in Bramalea. A lot of interest from the Bramalea landowners, particularly the owners of Bramalea City Centre, to work, roll up our sleeves with the community and the city to create a clear vision for how to guide how growth could move forward out there. And then lastly, Heritage Heights, for those of you who have been following that process. And again, changing the way we plan and really starting from the ground floor, creating a structure for walkability, cycling connections, transit orientation, etc. That's been a focus of Heritage Heights planning, and we look to complete that work fairly soon. So a lot of work is underway. In the future, we will, once we get all of these plans created, we will then shift to some of these other areas like Bram West, Trinity Common, Bram East, and create plans to drill down a little bit deeper and guide growth in those specific areas. Next steps, just quickly, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. Public consultation engagement will continue throughout this process. Over the coming weeks, we'll be bringing forward discussion papers to Planning Committee about the 7 theme areas that were articulated in the vision. We want to hear from you, incorporate your feedback, and then a directions report will be created in Q3 of this year with the goal of creating the new official plan by year end and hopefully getting it adopted early in 2022. As I mentioned earlier, discussion papers will focus on the key theme areas, so keep an eye out for those throughout June and July at Planning Committee meetings. Pathways to engage. We have email opreview@brampton.ca. Send us your comments. We will do our best to respond immediately. We're happy to take phone calls and engage as much as you want with us. Our website, brampton.ca/bramptonplan. Please go on there. That'll keep you up to date on all the work we're doing. Immediately after this session, all of you will be receiving a MetroQuest survey. Again, we want to make sure that we incorporate your feedback, your thoughts as we move forward. So keep an eye out for MetroQuest surveys as we move forward throughout the process. And that's a lot of talking on my part. I hope that you found it informative. What we're going to do now is Tristan Costa, Andrea Celeste have been monitoring the chat room. I have not been able to monitor it as I've been chatting, but Tristan, Andrea, and Bob are going to help us facilitate a bit of response to all of the great questions that you've been posing throughout. So over to Bob, Tristan, and Andrea.
Well, thanks, Andrew, and thanks for that great overview. I think it really helps set a lot of things in context. And I've been kind of looking as you've been going through the presentation and seeing some really thoughtful comments and some interesting points. And Andrea and Tristan, I think, are going to help us out with that in a little bit. And before we get right into that, I also wanted to just extend our thanks to Jennifer, who's been helping us out at the back end and making sure that the process has gone smoothly. Our IT support has been fantastic. So recognize that as we get into the next section here. So Andrea and Tristan, do you want to put some of the thoughts out there that you've been gleaning from the comments?
Absolutely. A lot of great questions coming in. Tristan, I think you wanted to say a few words first, and then we'll jump right into the questions.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Andrew. Great presentation, very informative. We've gotten a lot of questions have been rolling in. We've been doing our best to track all of them. Again, we will get to as many as we can today, but be sure to respond to all the questions and comments in the chat box. Just before we jump into the question period, I'm just going to ask that we pull the final poll back up with respect to the city structure, and we answer this one before we jump into the polling. Great. So this poll is just about with respect to the city structure direction. Andrew explained it in multiple slides. It's good to know whether or not we agree with the direction. We neither disagree or agree. Maybe some of us need a bit more information on the city structure. When this poll is over, we will jump into the question period. Again, my name is Tristan Costa, planner at the City of Brampton. joined again by our great team, and Andrea Salese and I will be kind of reading out some of the questions and giving them to the panel to answer some of the tough questions, some of the easier ones. There'll be a lot to go through. So we have about 35 minutes left, so hopefully we can get through a bunch of them. I think the time is up for the poll. I can't see the remaining time, but the answers should be rolling in soon. Okay, so this is great, actually. A majority of us like the direction of the city structure, or somewhat agree. So that's great to see. And I guess that's kudos to Andrew and the team for communicating that efficiently and delivering a great presentation. So again, I'll pass over to Andrea to read our first question. Thanks again for everybody who attended. And again, great thanks to our IT support, Jen and Janine.
Thank you, Tristan. And just to add that there were a few questions that came in prior to us starting the workshop today. So I'll read one of those. And one of those questions was related to planning for seniors in the city. So in what ways are we, as the city, contributing to the successful integration of seniors in Brampton? And is there an overall age-friendly strategy that people can take a look at?
So thanks, Andrew. So I'll provide a quick response on that. So the short answer is yes. It's actually it's such an incredibly important element, is to make sure we're planning for all ages and all abilities. And the city has developed an age-friendly strategy and adopted that, and actually been working to implement that. There is an age-friendly advisory committee that is also providing feedback, support, and connection to different parts of the community, different residents, organizations, and different groups. And we've had some recognition on that from the Brampton's now been recognized by the WHO as an age-friendly city because of the strategy and the initiatives that we're undertaking. So that's a fantastic point. In looking at these key directions that I think Andrew's touched on that have really informed the thinking, clearly being able to be in closer proximity to the services we all need helps. Having different opportunities to live at different phases of our lives, not having to move so far away from our existing areas helps maintain those family connections. So we're definitely being cognizant of that and making sure that the planning supports that. Andrew, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would echo everything you've said, Bob. And again, we had an opportunity to meet with the older adults committee of council back a few weeks ago. And one of the things that we heard from that committee was that they want to be part of the community. So mixed use environments is very much something that resonates across the board in all age groups. So we heard loud and clear that that's what folks are looking for. And it's about providing options. Living in a 5,000 square foot home on a cul-de-sac may be good at a certain stage of your life. Right now, I have small kids and it's fantastic. But for young folks, for older folks, maybe something else may be required. So it's about creating options and complete communities so that people can age within your neighborhoods. You shouldn't have to leave your neighborhood or leave the city of Brampton to go and find housing options at different stages of your life, for example. So hope that adds
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Andrea, do you have the next question?
Yes, we have lots of questions for you. Thank you, Bob. Thank you,
No
Andrew,
shortage.
for that response. A lot of questions rolling in related to healthcare, access to medical services, and COVID-19. And so I think this is top of mind for all of us, really. But in terms of your opinion and how we're approaching it with the official plan and strategic directions in those policies, how do you think COVID-19 has impacted planning in Brampton, specifically with respect to how the city might be addressing the issue of access to urgent care and medical services, and how can we plan for that in the Brampton plan?
Well, thanks, Andrew. That's a great question. I mean, absolutely top of mind for I think everybody these days. Certainly Brampton has and Brampton Council has taken a really active role in responding to the immediate issues around COVID, and work closely with Peel Region and the province, and sort of taken a series of focused efforts there. In terms of the planning context and working with the recent announcement, certainly with the expansion to the Peel Hospital, being able to have that urgent care need start to be addressed. What we're really trying to do is create clusters, trying to create sort of health precincts so that we can leverage those investments, have them more integrated into communities. Also with some of the jobs and the employment opportunities that can come with that. Clearly also the physical implications of COVID have really drawn attention to some of the ways that we can do a better job and some of the things we need to focus on. And some of that has been involved in implementing some active transportation projects in a really responsive way. So Williams Parkway and even just looking at patios and some of the things we can do to support businesses, but sort of recognizing that physical component that has become so critical for people's state of mind and really opportunities to have more of an equitable access to the spaces outside and the public realm that's such a critical element. So that's certainly in terms of all of the implications of COVID, aren't certainly at this point well known. We don't know exactly what's going to be spelled out, but it's highlighted some really key areas for us to pay attention to. So maybe I'll invite maybe Claire on the economic development front to talk about some of the key things that we're doing that have kind of come out of that business focused area, and then maybe Andrew, if you want to provide a little bit more on the ways this has actually been addressed or starting to be looked at through the Brampton plan.
Hey Bob, it's Claire. Were you looking for me to speak about the health and life sciences?
Yeah, I thought that might be a good
Sure.
piece of information for people.
Yeah, sure. That is one of our key sectors that we are looking to attract more investment, but also encourage the growth of the sector that we currently have. So because we want to marry a lot of the work that we are doing amongst our sectors, we have a very strong manufacturing base. So we're looking at attracting medical devices companies, and currently have Medtronic, one of the world leading medical devices companies in the country. So actually in the world. So we want to encourage that type of sector development as we look to attract investment. But I think what we're speaking about very importantly today is about that sector for health services and wellness. So it is about the residents and ensuring that we support small businesses and entrepreneurs that want to get into this sector. And we will work alongside you to make sure that we do that through the Entrepreneur Center especially. I hope that helps.
Oh, great. Thanks so much, Claire. Andrew, did you want to talk a little bit more about the ways it's being incorporated into the Brampton plan?
Absolutely. Just quickly. So wanted to highlight up in Northwest Brampton, part of our planning is looking at the potential for a third hospital. We've been in discussions with William Osler about the potential for that in the long term. As well, just to remind you of some of the earlier slides in the presentation, a real focus on livability. The one thing we've learned over the last year and a bit, being locked up in our homes, is having great access to trails, cycling, and how livable our environments, particularly as a number of us are having to work from home. So critical to the plan. And then just a reminder, COVID at some point, we will move past this. So it's really the direct relationship between the environments we're creating and enhancing livability, because that has a direct impact on health and a direct impact on our healthcare system. So that's some of the layers that we're thinking about this from. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. All right. Our next question, Andrea.
Yes, so I thought a good segue from this conversation and excellent responses and really, really interesting was a question related to green spaces and access to green space, which I think is also top of mind for those that are trying to get out and get some physical exercise. So what are we doing to consider, and this is a really good way of phrasing the question, environmental inequity, in the sense of how are we prioritizing access to green spaces in the city so that everybody has access to some form of recreational space or outdoor space? And does the city have experts that are reviewing the official plan from an equity perspective in that regard?
That's a great point and an incredibly important one. I think as Andrew mentioned in the presentation, I mean, Brampton is truly blessed with some fantastic green networks, and the natural system that's currently in Brampton and has been developed and part of the community development is a really key aspect of what makes Brampton such an attractive place to live. At the same time, we can also recognize that not everyone has the same access to those opportunities, and that hasn't necessarily been fully incorporated into all of the planning work that has been done. Whether you sort of back on to a valley system, that may mean that others don't have quite the same access to it. The park distribution, Brampton has a fantastic set of parks. There's certainly things we can do to make sure that those are integrated more into the communities, and that as the communities intensify and grow, that continues to be something that people have strong access to and is strongly an element of the plan. One of the things that's I think is quite different in terms of the approach with the official plan is really a strong emphasis on equity issues and diversity and inclusion. So acknowledging that different parts of the community have developed differently, and some elements of the planning that's happened in the past have really excluded certain populations, certain groups, certain income people from having the same kinds of opportunities that the rest of the community has had. So we do really want to acknowledge and pay attention to that. Brampton's taking very strong action on anti-Black racism. We're looking at certainly with the Indigenous communities and those participants, and across the board, just making sure that as many things that we can do to make sure the opportunities are there to correct some things that might have not been done as well in the past, and really try to focus on providing that range of opportunities that Brampton has, and make sure that those are available to everyone who's living here. In terms of the expertise, we're getting a lot of different experts involved, and absolutely going to have input and involvement, and the team itself is also internally it's a very strong focus for the city. In some respects, elements of this aren't ones that has been front and center in planning work in the past, but that acknowledgement is such an important part of the way the community needs to grow and develop. So that's a key aspect for us. Andrew, I don't know if there's anything specific you want to add, but absolutely that green network and the equitable approach, the recognition for that for both existing and new communities is going to be something that's very prominent in the official plan.
Yeah, I would just add quickly, I think Bob's done an excellent job at providing a very thorough answer. The concept of 20-minute neighborhoods includes, specifically as pertaining to this question, access and equity towards accessing green space and trails. The way we design our streets should allow people to get on a bike or walk to a neighborhood park. The goal of having a local park within a 5-minute walk of every household in Brampton, those are the types of aspirational goals that we want to incorporate into this plan. Everybody can't be located 5 minutes from the Credit River, but we can certainly create trails and beautifully designed streets that can allow people to hop on a bicycle and get to the Credit River. So those are the types of things that we'll be thinking about, but within a 20-minute neighborhood, everybody should have access to some quality green space and the ability to walk or get on a bicycle. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Andrew. And Andrea, the next question.
So the next question,
Tristan,
I'm
sorry.
gonna, no, it's okay. I'm going to read out, I think it's a good segue based on the previous question regarding social equity. It's how are we inviting input from all resident groups and identities for building our city? And how is the team reaching out to diverse groups, especially elders within our community? And are there different ways that elders can, be involved within this process, the Brampton Plan process?
Well, thanks, Tristan. I mean, I think this question really cuts to the heart of what this process is about. Of course, there's lots of information and background and technical work that needs to happen. There's the relationships between Peel, provincial government policy, all of those things. But really, at the core of this is making sure that the residents are front and center in providing their vision into the plan, and that's absolutely fundamental to getting this right. So clearly, and I think Andrew can probably speak to this, as can you, Tristan, the approach to consultation has changed a little bit. I think we would love to be in person in these kinds of situations. At the same time, it's provided one way that we can reach some different audiences. And I'd also invite that one of the really key things is for people who are listening to mention the opportunities, to let us know, to get in touch for suggestions as well of groups to connect with, because that is a huge component of what's going to be happening over the next number of months and the next year. Is reaching out to different communities, trying to make sure that we've got as much contact and really meaningful discussion opportunities with people. I'll let maybe Andrew talk more specifically about the consultation for the official plan, but it's absolutely critical in our view that we get as broad and as deep a consultation as we can possibly get, and opening up as many channels, as many conversations, and then as early as possible when it's safe to do so, moving to events that are in people's neighborhoods, that are at other events going on, so that there is that visibility and that opportunity for people to provide their input. But Andrew, maybe you want to talk about some of the specific strategies that are going to be employed and have been started to be employed through the Brampton Plan process.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tristan can jump in as well, because Tristan is leading a lot of the engagement planning for us on this process. But absolutely, we're going to do the best we can to get out and have conversations with as many people as we can, as cast the net as broad as we can. Obviously, our preference is to be face to face. That's just not a reality right now. We're leveraging technology to the best of our abilities, and I've noticed a bunch of comments that some folks actually like this way of communicating. So we're going to leverage technology to the best of our abilities. We're getting out to committees of council. We're going to be out meeting one-on-one with faith groups, folks of all ages, etc. So we're going to do the best we can to cast the net broad. Tristan and Anand, who are on our team, who are rolling up their sleeves to help us create this plan, they were part of leading the Vision 2040 process. Through that process, they made a lot of connections throughout the communities in Brampton. So we're going to leverage all of those moving forward. Tristan, is there anything that you want to add specifically to what we're doing?
Oh, I think you covered a lot of it, Andrew. And just one point, I think on the point of engaging with seniors, we are leveraging places of worship to engage our seniors and diverse groups in the city. Also leveraging our post-secondary institutions to make sure that we're engaging a somewhat younger demographic, and also reaching to our international students as well. So many pathways to engage. And I just want to mention that the engagement process is ongoing. We're always taking comments. Please feel free to send an email to us with your comments. We'll be taking those via email. That is opreview@brampton.ca, and that will be shared in a follow-up email as well.
Great, thanks so much, Tristan. Yes, I think the door is open, and if people have suggestions about other groups or other ways to connect with people, we're really happy to consider those through the process. So Tristan or Andrea, what's the next question that you've got for us?
Yes, we have a really great question for you, Bob, Andrew, and team. A lot of comments coming in the chat and prior to this workshop related to housing. So housing affordability, access to housing, and planning for housing, not just for this generation, but for the next generation, so that people who live in Brampton can continue to live in Brampton if they so choose. So that being said, how is the city planning on planning for accessible housing, affordable housing, multi-generational housing, and affordable housing in the Brampton plan?
So thank you. A really, really important aspect, and again, a thing that over the last few years has become increasingly prominent as one of the top concerns for people is that housing affordability and that ability to continue to live where they would like, close to family, all those sorts of things. In terms of resolving that, I mean, it's a very complex issue, and we're really fortunate that we've got a council that has an appetite to dig into this issue and really take action. And following through on that, we've had a lot of work over the past 2 years at least, and are going to be coming forward with a specific strategy. Housing Brampton is the strategy. Be early May. It'll be coming through to Planning Committee and Council that will really emphasize some of the key actions that we have before us and some of the things that are already happening. So in terms of the Brampton plan, some of that is some of the actions we can do from a municipal level are really to provide more opportunities for different types of housing, to look at what are some cost-effective ways that we can kind of reduce the regulatory approaches and ensure that there's easier access to different types of housing forms that can be developed. Trying to be very cognizant of that input. Look for tools to kind of in our new developments try to ensure that they have that broader range of not just affordability but also type. We certainly know in Brampton larger household sizes are the norm. Far more than any other community in Canada. And so we want to make sure that what's built here really does reflect the community and addresses the needs of the community. So that's fundamental to being successful here is looking at that, and it does look at what opportunities there are to create some of those different types of housing forms, the typologies, the lower intensity types of changes. So looking at, of course, secondary suites have been a huge uptake there. We also have to make sure that any of these kinds of new approaches that we're paying attention to potential neighborhood impacts and trying to make sure that we have a coordinated approach for having the outcomes that we're looking for, because we know that there's a lot of change potentially coming, and we want to make sure that we're harnessing in a way that's going to benefit the full community. Again, it's not an easy question. Certainly not Brampton's all within Brampton's control, but I think we've got some good starts and ways to engage and work with other orders of government and the private sector as well as residents to try and look at whether it's intensifying, whether it's specific housing projects and programs, and then just how to tailor the types of projects that are being developed to fit the needs of the community. It's all something that is really fundamental to being successful in the next stages of Brampton's evolution. Andrew, I don't know if there's anything specific you might want to add. I think it's a key theme, and there will be a specific discussion paper coming out and a specific session to talk about the residential and housing issues.
Yeah, no, I would keep my points brief. I think you've given some of the key aspects. The folks at the city that are leading this portfolio of developing the affordable housing strategy are part of this team. So recommendations that come out of the affordable housing strategy will directly be inputted into the official plan. And again, as Bob mentioned, we will be bringing forward a discussion paper I believe it's in June that starts to articulate more detailed responses to this. But absolutely one of the key issues that we're looking at.
Great answers. Thank you, Andrew and Bob. This fabulous discussion today. I thought we'd switch gears just a wee bit and we talk a little bit about climate change and how the Brampton plan will address, mitigating and adapting to, climate events and planning for the future.
So thanks. Another really key aspect. Certainly there's no denying that that's something that's got to be front and center in our understanding. And I think there's some great things we can build on, and we have to make sure that that we do incorporate that climate change lens, both in terms of the mitigation and the adaptation aspects. So Brampton again has taken a really strong leadership stance in declaring a climate emergency, and as well has taken some pretty significant steps in terms of the community energy plan that's been endorsed by council, and that also is one of the documents that's and actions that will be incorporated in the official plan. I think how we tackle this really does set the stage for how successful we're going to be in the future. It's not a sidebar issue. It's fundamental to our success, and so that's absolutely informs I think every aspect of the plan, and it's helpful to keep highlighting it and challenging ourselves as we go through this. To see what areas there are that we can improve and get more focused. Because it's not a small initiative, but it's also not something that's going to be going away. That is going to be a focus of attention for going into the future for everything that we do. So there are specific elements in the plan, and Andrew, if you want to sort of outline some of those key points, I just say absolutely that is an absolutely critical element to be incorporated, and not as a specific item off on its own, but as something that needs to be woven throughout all of the actions that we as a community undertake into the future.
Yeah, I would add, I think Brampton is really setting ourselves up to be a real leader on this whole front, through direction from council to declare the climate emergency, but also leadership from staff working with the community to develop things like their community energy reduction plan. The way that we grow from this type forward has a direct impact on the climate. I think we all get that. Our approach to transportation, focusing on develop compact communities so we don't have to drive as much, reducing auto emissions by the way we plan, the way we design our streets to encourage active transportation. These are all critical connections that have a direct impact on the environment, things that we're taking very seriously. For those who have been paying attention to the whole Highway 413 discussion, I won't go down that rabbit hole, but what I will say is the environmental groups who have been very strong in that discussion, they've all come out and said the approach that Brampton is taking under council leadership towards the planning of Northwest Brampton, they like it. They think it's responsible. It's the right thing to do. I mentioned earlier we're now undertaking a community energy plan as part of that secondary planning work. So I think Brampton is showing some real strong leadership on the climate imperative. And as Bob mentioned, that will be something that's woven throughout the plan because it's absolutely critical to plan a city for future generations. Thank you.
That's great. So do time for maybe one more question?
Yeah, so we got about 7 minutes left, maybe one or two more questions.
Yeah.
Our next question, it came very early on in the presentation, but where could somebody find more information about the impact of urban sprawl on property taxes? I know, Andrew, you addressed that in your presentation, but just to combine another question, Brampton has one of the highest tax rates in the GTA. Is this process going to bring down taxes in the short or long term?
Okay, so thanks. Those are both good questions. I mean, there's lots of information I think we can probably point to in terms of the sprawl, and I think, as you'd said, the cost implications for planning for the fiscal future of a community have to be cognizant of the sorts of things that I think we had in that presentation. You know, that financial reality to how infrastructure is provided, but also the ongoing costs related to providing the services that cities provide, which are fundamental. So, you know, in principle, you know, that's not something that has been as well accounted for, certainly in Canada or North America, as the long-term costs of the physical form that we wind up developing in. That's become a lot more pressing, I think, as infrastructure renewal has come up, and starting to understand, you know, the annual costs. You know, if you have more roads, it costs more. If certainly when you get into replacing them, you know, so making more efficient use of the infrastructure is going to make a difference. It's not the only thing. And in terms of you know, is the Brampton plan going to reduce taxes in the short term? That's probably not what's going to happen. Brampton's had a very strong focus on taxes and making sure that the resources are being used effectively, and which is really a whole other discussion. The Brampton plan is really setting up that structure, that longer term view for how we're going to address the fundamentals for the taxes. So that there's the operational elements. There's also how we introduce different cost drivers into those. So we're the kind of city that we creates the cost environment that we're responding to. So making sure that this plan is positioning Brampton to have that lower overhead, that lower requirement, while still providing very high levels of service that are going to make it attractive and continue to be a place that people seek out and want to call home and want to continue to work in. But those components, you know, come out through other phases. This is really the foundational big picture look. So it's a certainly a consideration, but taxes are not the fundamental outcome of the not in the immediate short term for the Brampton plan. Andrew, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, but
yeah, I think you gave a great response. The only thing I would add additionally is the way we're setting this plan up is directly thinking about ongoing and future cost burdens to potential residents and business owners. We want to make sure that we're setting this up to be a sustainable path for Brampton. Things like the type of infrastructure we choose to invest in, let's make sure it's a package deal. It's been thought out, because you may have the money to build a road, a big wide road in the next 2 years, but you have to maintain that for hundreds of years. So let's think about the long term, about the types of investments we're making in planning compact communities, but also the infrastructure that's going to connect these communities, and the affordability about maintaining all of that infrastructure over the long term in a state of good repair. Very important to be thinking about the long term. That has crept up and impacted a lot of cities, particularly south of the border, Detroit, New Jersey. They got caught up in the big wide streets, and it's come back to bite them. So we are absolutely thinking about that, because it's so critical to the long-term health and viability of Brampton to be thinking about that.
Great. Well, thanks, Andrew. And I think so, Tristan, we managed to get a couple of questions into that last question. Really, all of these are fantastic thoughts, and I'm really pleased that we've had such a good response to this meeting. I'd like to thank again the mayor for his time and in kicking this off, and the support that we've received as well. I've also seen Councillor Santos, who's been listening in, as well as Councillor Bowman. And again, thank Councillor Medeiros, and extend our thanks to Councillor Fortini. Hope your dental work went well, and you're going to be feeling better soon. I think, as Tristan emphasized and is up here, please do have a look at the website listing that we've got through the Brampton plan. There are lots of different ways that we would like to offer to get involved. We'll continue to accept comments on today's presentation and questions. You can send them to opreview@brampton.ca, and we will respond to those as we can get to them. And there's the recording. There'll also be a summary of this meeting, which will be posted in the coming weeks. So again, I'd just like to thank everyone. Again, our IT support, which has been fantastic, and the whole of the team, and also the great cross-departmental connections that have supported this work. So really important work for Brampton, and it's absolutely critical for us to get your input. So I hope this has been helpful and informative, and we're looking forward to hearing you and many more of you through the remainder of the process. So thanks, and enjoy the rest of your day.